Ncuti Gatwa was recently announced as the next actor to take on the mantle of Doctor Who, making him the first black man to have played the role, taking over the role from Jodie Whittaker, who was the first woman, and arguably Jo Martin, who was the first woman of colour to take on the mantle of the Doctor. Now, there has been a lot of debate amongst the Doctor Who community as to the rules of regeneration. Despite the presence of two other Time Lords who had regenerated into a different gender on screen, a lot of fans have had a negative reaction to the casting of Jodie Whittaker, and one of the main complaints was that the show was changing the rules around regeneration. So let's take a closer look at the regeneration in both the classic and new Who and see how much the continuity has really changed, and whether there have ever been any hard and fast rules that the recent regenerations have broken. The concept of regeneration was not there right from the start of Doctor Who. It was initially conceived as a storytelling device so that they could recast the Doctor and keep the show going after William Hartnell, the first Doctor, left. And for a world with 50 years of TV shows, audio dramas, novels, spin-offs and even a movie or two, it's no surprise that the continuity has become a bit blurred. But the truth of the matter is that regeneration in Doctor Who has never been consistent. The continuity of Doctor Who is a mess, with the first Doctor only having one heart, despite two hearts being made one of the supposed constant biological factors amongst Time Lords later on in the show. Very little explanation or context is given the first time the Doctor regenerates. He simply tells his companions, "This old body of mine is wearing a bit thin," and thus begins a cycle of regenerations that have become the cause of debate to this very day. Right away his companions note, it's not just his body, he doesn't even act like him, immortalising one of the consistencies amongst regeneration, that the personality shifts as well as the physical form. The second regeneration, though, is completely different. When Patrick Troughton, the second Doctor, reached the end of his time, he was forced to regenerate by the Time Lords before being exiled to Earth. He was given the chance to choose his new body, and this established that the Time Lords could be forced to regenerate, and that the Time Lords had the power to completely manipulate and control the process if they wanted to. This was further evidenced much later on in Destiny of the Daleks, when Romana, another Gallifreyan, was shown to completely control her regeneration, selecting a new body for herself and even going so far as to try out several different options, one of which didn't even appear human. It was a blue-skinned humanoid, which established that Time Lords could change their skin colour, which invalidates any complaints about the Doctor now being black. The third Doctor, John Pertwee, required an extra push from another Time Lord in order to complete his regeneration. Then the fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, was followed around by a ghost-like figure called the Watcher, who was a fully sentient being who interacted with other characters and merged with the Doctor at the time of his death, revealed to be the next regeneration of the Doctor waiting to take up the mantle. Tom Baker became Pete Davison, and the cycle of inconsistency continues. Ironically, when Pete Davison regenerates into Colin Baker, he says, "I might regenerate, I don't know. It feels different this time, as if it had ever been the same," which clearly it hadn't. From here, the next two regenerations only really seem to change in the special effects that they use, but the pattern of inconsistency is still left it unclear as to what the rules and restrictions were. Paul McGann's, though not shown until much later in The Night of the Doctor, which was written by Stephen Moffat, is controlled. The Sisterhood of Khan state the change doesn't have to be random, fat or thin, young or old, man or woman. And this level of wide variation isn't introduced by Moffat. In The Parting of Ways, written much earlier by Russell T Davies, Christopher Eccleston says, "I might have two heads, or no head." He goes on to say, "It's a bit dodgy, this process. You never really know what you're going to end up with." Additionally, in The End of Time, which was also written by Russell T Davies, when David Tennant regenerates into Matt Smith, the new Doctor mistakes himself momentarily for a woman, establishing that he knew this was a possibility. Some people look to the audio stories and novels for clarification, but these simply add more variety. In the 2007 audio story Spring, following the fifth Doctor, one Time Lord regenerates into a bird-like life form, and in the 2002 Book of War, Time Lords are shown to regenerate themselves into monsters and creatures that are better suited for battle in the Time War. The fact of the matter is, the regenerations in Doctor Who were never consistent, and they were never meant to be. Regeneration was only ever meant to be a narrative device allowing the character to be recast so that the franchise could live on. Various writers introduced various rules, which other writers invariably retconned, such as the limit of 13 regenerations, which was removed when they hit the limit and wanted to keep the story going. Regardless of your thoughts on the recent casting, Any complaints about the Time Lord being able to change biological sex or skin colour just doesn't make any sense. Any Doctor Who fan will be able to tell you that regeneration has always been inconsistent and unpredictable. And even looking to the classic series as the be-all and end-all of Doctor Who lore, we know that their anatomy can change, with the Doctor going from having one heart to two, and we know that their skin colour can change, with Romana briefly sampling a body with blue skin. It's okay to have a favourite Doctor and a least favourite Doctor. It's okay to prefer the old series to the newer ones. It's even okay if you're not a fan of Jodie Whittaker or the writing of Chris Chibnall. But now you can definitively say that there was no logical reason that the Doctor couldn't regenerate from a male body into a female one, or a white body into a black one. That's all from me. Consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and following me on TikTok. And if you're into sci-fi and fantasy, which if you're here I suspect you are, check out my novels, Fists of Justice and The Slope. Have an amazing day.